and I'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of Reynolds Company's Tech Talk sessions. Today, we're going to be focused on the impact of the Microsoft DCOM hardening patch that Microsoft has come out with, and how the effect of Rockwell Automation products and some actions that can be taken to mitigate the issue. Before we get started, though, I'd like to just make you aware of a couple of things on our calendar. We don't have a slide for this, but next week is Rockwell's Rock Live event that's happening in Orlando, Florida. For those of you that are joining, should be a great event. It's for those of you that could still potentially join. It's not too late to sign up, but it's a week-long event next week. It's similar to the Tech Ed events of the past, but it's a little bit different. It's got a different name, focusing a little bit more on some of the Rockwell software solutions. And we also have in a couple of weeks, the week of June 20th, we're going to have our user group session that will be focused on Control Logics and Plant PX, I believe. So stay tuned for that. The invites will be going out. And another thing, just to add on to the DCOM discussion today, we do have a blog post that we just posted this morning on our website. I think we may be putting a link to that in the chat today to dig deeper into into some of the DCOM summaries. And with that, I'll hand it over to our presenter today that will be talking about the Microsoft DCOM hardening patch. So take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tad Pallas. I am a principal product manager at Rockwell Automation. I've been around a very long time. I started with Rockwell in 1988 and have probably product managed some of your favorite products along the way. But today we're going to talk about Microsoft's response to a vulnerability in which they're going to be hardening DCOM. So what is happening is there is a vulnerability in DCOM. It's described in Microsoft CVE-2021-26414. They describe their plan of attack in their knowledge base 5004442. And what they are doing is changing the authentication level used by products in a distributed system. It's important to know that this is industry-wide. This is not just OT. This is not just IT. It's not just Rockwell Automation. This is any product that uses DCOM in a specific way. You have to at least evaluate against the patch, if not, or evaluate against the Microsoft change in possibly produce patches. In our case, there are several directly affected products and many indirectly affected products, and I'll describe what that more means in just a second. We have a official product notice, PN1581, that's been on the knowledge base for quite a while now. And what you need to know is Microsoft is delivering a patch next Tuesday, Patch Tuesday of June of 2022, that is going to start enforcing this rule from them, this hardening. The June of 2022 does allow for some mitigations, and I'll talk about their timeline a little bit more. If a customer deploys the June of 2022 cumulative update and does nothing else, your Rockwell Automation products, many of them will stop working. The system will no longer work properly. This is going to be products that use FactoryTalk Services or FactoryTalk Live Data in the background. It's going to be products that use classic OPC-DA to get data from third parties. And it'll also be products that just use the Windows DCOM APIs to make a connection. Our primary example for that last one is Thin Manager, because it's not actually integrated with FactoryTalk, but it does use DCOM in one specific way. So when I say things are directly affected or indirectly affected, So the directly affected product use Windows APIs to make a DCOM connection. And a real good example is FactoryTalk Services. So FactoryTalk Services is ubiquitous to many of the FactoryTalk enabled products. It provides authentication and authorization. There's an eventing subsystem. There's some other benefits to FactoryTalk Services. And the client computer makes a DCOM connection to the server computer. And actually the server makes a callback to the client. And this is going to be directly affected by the hardening that Microsoft is doing. The hardening that Microsoft's doing will prevent unpatched versions of FactoryTalk from making a DCOM connection. Now, many products are indirectly affected, and those are going to be things like Logix 5000. Has an indirect impact from this hardening, and that's because it's dependent on FactoryTalk Services for doing authorization and authentication. So Studio 5000 actually uses a COM interface, not DCOM, but just COM, to talk to local pieces of FactoryTalk Services on a client computer. And then FactoryTalk Services does the things it needs to do in the background, which to use DCOM, which, as I said, are directly affected. So if you applied the Microsoft cumulative update and we're using Studio 5000, depending on some settings in the directory, you may not see a problem, or you will see a problem. And primarily that has to do with the cache, the way the FactoryTalk Services work. There's a local cache on the client computer, and if that cache expires, services won't be able to update it, and then Logix 5000 won't be able to do authentication and authorization. There are also unaffected products, and there is ways that these directly affected products might be completely unaffected. If you had a standalone View SE Site Edition system, which had its own directory, its own FactoryTalk directory client, and its own FactoryTalk View Site Edition, you could apply the cumulative update. You would never see that problem. Okay. So this is a very dense slide. Sorry for that. The columns on the left are directly affected products. So all these products need to be patched, and those patches are actually already available. So services, links, Link Classic, things a little more transaction manager, and then things a little more far afield like Pavilion, Production Center. These all have patches that are required to be applied. The 5 products that are on the left that are, I'm trying to see if I have on the left of the laser pointer. Down here on the left, these you can mitigate by changing a DCOM setting on the computer. These other products up here have to have a patch. So the products on the right are the indirectly affected products, or products that are completely unaffected. Okay, so things like Studio 5000, FactoryTalk View ME Station, Historian. You may see an indirect effect because they rely on FactoryTalk Services, or they rely on FactoryTalk links, which require patches. Oh, how do I get rid of that? So what might that effect look like? As I've talked about direct and indirect and the whole list of products, what might you see? So for FactoryTalk Services, what you would see from FactoryTalk Administration Console, because it's directly affected, is you might not be able to load or edit the directory. If you did a change that you made in the directory on client 1 might not propagate to the directory server or to clients 2, 3, clients 100. You won't see changes that you make. For indirectly affected products, so again, Logix is probably the primary one. You're going to see authentication and authorization failures. So the security system won't let the user make a change in Logix 5000. For the data server products, they're pretty much the same effect on both. Directly, the remote client and the server won't be able to make connections for live data, or if you're using the classic OPC-DA, the client won't be able to talk to a remote server, or vice versa. And how that manifests is you might see tag, browse, read, and write failures in a product like FactoryTalk Transaction Manager. You won't be able to browse tags, or you won't be able to read or write tags. Okay. This is for the unpatched, directly affected products. So what are we doing? So all of our products released in March, which were the Logix 5000 or Control Logix V34 aligned products, View, Links, Services, many others, Asset Center, a few others, are not are releasing DCOM hardening ready. So all of those March release products ship in such a way that Microsoft's DCOM hardening patch won't adversely affect their operation. But those are really new products, and many customers don't adopt them until there's some runtime. So what about all these existing products out here, our entire installed base? So we have a version lifecycle policy within Rockwell, and we are following it. And two of the states, there's a preferred state and a managed state. And our directly affected products will have patches for those versions that are in preferred and managed state. And the details of that are called out in the product notice, PN1581, and I'll share them here as well. But there is a timeline involved. So since June of 2021, the Microsoft components started to ship the underlying pieces so that OEMs like Rockwell could test, or end users could test, with enabling the DCOM hardening and figuring out what things were going to break. We're up to now June of 2022, so the cumulative update will turn on the DCOM hardening from Microsoft's perspective, but there is a mitigation. You can disable it. Okay, and then in March of 2023, Microsoft's change is permanent and there is no mitigation. The DCOM authentication level minimum will be elevated. So what that means for us is, for our unpatched, directly affected products, up until the customer deploys the June of 2022 cumulative update, or up to through February, our product would work unpatched. So FactoryTalk Services, FactoryTalk Links, everybody would keep working until they deploy the cumulative update following June of 2022. At that point, the customer needs to do one of two things. Use a Microsoft registry key to tell the Windows not to elevate the DCOM authentication level, or patch our products. So if you did that mitigation of telling Microsoft not to enforce the DCOM hardening, our unpatched products would continue to work up until the March of 2023 cumulative update or later is applied, because at that point, Microsoft removes the ability to mitigate. Okay. In that same time frame, if you did deploy June of 2022, which elevates DCOM, you could apply our product patches and the system would keep working. Come March of 2023, the only mitigation is to have patched products or updated versions. Okay. So this is a list of all the products that were directly affected. Many of them participate in what we call the monthly roll-up, the CPR9 service release monthly patch roll-up. The ones that don't have a star and that they're at the bottom of the list here. For all of those products, with the exception of FactoryTalk Batch, the April or May roll-up contains all the needed patches for this DCOM problem. Okay. April had it for many of the services up to RS Links Classic, and then May contains all of April plus all of May going forward. For products that are not participating in the monthly patch rollup, like Vantage Point, you would have to download the individual version patch and apply it to the systems that were running Vantage Point. So what do you need to do to ensure operation? We are now in June of 2022. So once that cumulative update is deployed from Microsoft, they can disable the DCOM security updates as described by Microsoft in their knowledge base article. There's a registry key that you can manipulate directly. You can push that registry key through group policy, GPO in a domain. And we have created a utility that you can use to set Microsoft's DCOM hardening to enable it or disable it. Another thing they could do if you deploy June 2022 is to install all the patches for our directly affected products and or update products to newer versions, the March of 2022 version. In March of, and those mitigations would work until March of 2023 when the DCOM hardening becomes permanent. And really the only option then is to either patch our products or upgrade to the most current version. So all of the information we have related to DCOM is in a collection of knowledge base articles. And we created, I see there's some chat questions coming in. I'll go through them in a second. We've created a table of content article called IN 39461. This links these articles below it. Several of them are more important than others. So the first one here, this is the product notice. That's the official position and list of everything. The IN 39470, this, the one it says mitigating Microsoft DCOM. This is for mixed systems when you have some products patched and some not yet patched, and it tells you what to do and how to address that system, because all of the computers and all of the products need to be using the same DCOM authentication level or you're going to have problems. And the mitigation, this IN 39470, tells you how to set the system so that, for instance, as you're deploying the updates to the FactoryTalk directory and you start deploying updates to clients, what do you need to do so that the unpatched clients can still talk to the directory server? Okay. And that goes through that. It also has links to the utility. There's one utility that we've created that allows you to turn Microsoft hardening on and off, and then there's a second utility that allows you to tell Rockwell Automation products what DCOM authentication level to use. Okay. We also tell you what the registry keys are in case you want to use group policy object, GPO, and set those registry keys automatically through the domain. IN 39472, minimizing the system impact. This describes order of application of the patches to keep us running system up and running as much as we can. All of these patches and app changing of DCOM authentication levels do require reboots, just so you know. And then there is an FAQ around our response. Now let's see some of the questions. So there's a question, what is from Steve E? What's the impact to ME module and control logics rack running a processor? So there is no known hardware impacts. This is purely computer to computer in a distributed system. Okay. If you have standalone station like VOSE station standalone, or if you had a standalone transaction manager system, the DCOM hardening won't affect it because it's not making any off-box DCOM connection. Okay. Dave Murphy has a question applied to April. Dave Murphy, I gotta ask you to contact tech support so we can dig into that. Our testing did not show that problem. Previous slide, I think Brian, okay, Brian's just making a comment, okay. And that really is the update I have for DCOM. Oh, there's one more question. Do April or May patches specifically have to be applied, or will the patch roll up? So the patch roll up, let me go back to this slide from current slide. So the patch roll-ups will apply all of the individual patches. So if you apply May 2022 patch roll-up, it will apply the patches for all these versions of thin manager, transaction manager, batch, well, not batch, sorry. Batch is going to be a little bit delayed. So if you apply May, it applies the, will update all these versions. Some of these versions go back 5 years, following our version lifecycle policy. So View Site Edition 9 was released in December of 2016. That is as far back as we are going. If a customer is using, and this was an important point I should have made, if a customer is using FactoryTalk View SE version 8, they have to update. But, well, let me rephrase that. They have two options. Air gap the system from Windows cumulative updates going forward, or upgrade to a version of FactoryTalk View that we have patches for the DCOM authentication. And that is true for any of these. FactoryTalk Services 2.80 was released in 2014. We're not patching Services 2.8. Okay, customer needs to either air gap from cumulative updates or update their software and then apply the patches. So let's see. Jim is asking, what patch rollup do we need to be at for everything to work after the June? May, if you need the May, right now I would say May of 2022 patch. If you have FactoryTalk batch in use, you'd have to wait for the July of 2022 rollup. Alex still, do we have a list of software needs update based on version? I think I'm showing it to you right now. It's in the official product list is in the product notice PN 1581. Okay. Jeff Hines. Yes, cumulative, our monthly patch rollups are cumulative. So let's try not to use cumulative twice. So, but yes, June of 22, July of 2022 will contain all these patches. So, okay. All right.
So I guess that I don't see any more questions come up in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions before we sign off? I think this was a very informative Tech Talk today. And Thaddeus, I really appreciate your time this morning to go over this. This is an important subject. We had a good attendance today. And if anybody has any questions after the talk, please reach out to one of your automation specialists and we'll be more than happy to help you. Also check the chat for our blog post about DCOM hardening. We do have all the links to the Rockwell notices on our blog post as well. So we're encouraging you to go on the Rockwell website and for the details of how to handle this patch from Microsoft. And again, thank you, Thaddeus, for participating today, and wish everybody a good day.